All right, so to start off, we're gonna start with the basics. What is design and what even is art? Can art be called art because it's selected to hang in a museum or a gallery? Does an object have to be on display for other people to see for it to be a work of art? And I'm not expecting you to answer these questions. I just want you to start thinking about them. And this can be a very individual thing. You're starting to, I want you to start develop your sensibilities as an artist, as a designer. Even if you never end up making art again after this class, you can still appreciate art when you see it and design when you see it. And I'm hoping at the very least you start to look at the world a little differently, maybe see beauty and design in places in your everyday life that you never would have noticed before. So this is just not questions you have to answer, just things to get you thinking. So what about music, dance, poetry, fashion, film? Are those things art? What about the way someone decides to dress in the morning or the way someone does their hair? Is that artistic? And this is a quote from Marilyn Stockstad, who wrote an art history book that I've used a lot for my classes. And she says, our responses to art are learned behaviors influenced by gender, class, race, education, economic status, and geography. I was raised by grandparents who loved art. And my grandfather loved Picasso. He even painted a little bit like Picasso. So when I see a Picasso, I'm sure it's different than when other people see it who have no personal connection to it, right? It's sentimental for me. It reminds me of my grandfather. So these kind of things, everything in your life, who you are, comes into how you respond to artwork. Okay, and then what is design? I actually had a hard time making this slide because it didn't just come to me. So I looked up some definitions. And anytime you see like the smaller text, or if you see an underlined text, that means there's a link to it so you can know what my sources are anytime I'm saying something that's not, my words, or if I'm paraphrasing or quoting. So design is the organization of line, form, color, value, texture, and space in an eye-pleasing arrangement. And like we were just talking about, eye-pleasing can be very individual, right? Someone might hate Picasso, where I love this Picasso because it's sentimental to me or reminds me of someone I love. But it could remind someone of their dentist office and they hate getting dental work, and there's a Picasso poster hung up there and they could hate it because of that. Everyone has their own idea of what eye-pleasing is. So sometimes that's a hard definition for me. And then I like to look up the etymology, or like where the word came from. And as far as we know, from the late 14th century, design was from this Latin word to shape, or to make, to shape, to mark out, to point out. So identifying, mark, assign. So that's a very basic etymology of what design is. Then I want you to broaden your idea of design and think of all of the jobs that have design in their title: fashion designer, interior designer, graphic designer, user experience, UX designer, UI designer, industrial designer, engineering designer, interaction designer, motion design, advertising design, environmental design, information design, game design, software design. There's landscape designers, there's architectural designers. So many people have design in their title. So just think about how broad this term is. And then another thing I want you to think about is, how many people today do you think identify as artists, designers, or creatives, and how many don't? And how do you feel about that? There's no right or wrong answer. And then this is something I think about. Are social media creators, they call themselves creators and influencers, are they designers, artists, or are they in another category? Think about I go back and forth on what I think. I never have a solid opinion on any of this stuff because it's all out there and things are changing all the time. So this is just things I want you to start thinking about. Okay, so just to give you some overview of like what careers can be in design and illustration and how they're different from maybe other art forms that we're going to be making and talking about. So usually with design or an illustrator, you're working for a paying client or a company, and it's conveying a really specific message. So if you see a drawing or a painting in a gallery, it might not have a specific or clear message that's getting across to the viewer. The viewer is us, anybody looking at the art, anybody in a museum looking at an art, anyone online looking at the art, anyone on the subway looking at an ad, or on the train looking at an advertisement. So, the graphic design or the illustration is telling a story to the viewer. A lot of times it's helping sell a product, promote a business, or spread an idea. So think about that advertising in the train. This image is from Wendy McNaughton, and you can see it's underlined. That's a link to her website. She's a living American artist and illustrator. And this is from a graphic novel, an illustration which has text in it and is clearly showing us a lot about what's happening with this cat. And I also think it's adorable. It's a cat. So graphic design communicates a really specific message, and it can have text or just images. The images are great because anyone can understand them. The one of the person falling in the bike, I don't know why it makes me laugh. It's horrible, and bike accidents are horrible, but there's something about, there was a book made of this guy on these signs having a really bad day, all the awful things that happens to this character that we see on these yellow signs. But think about how they're a visual form of communication that anybody from any language can understand that image. And it's so simple. I just see circles, triangles, and then a bunch of rectangles that make up the body, and some of the rectangles have rounded edges. There's really not much going on, but anybody can understand what that sign means. It's very effective. So think about how these kind of designs give us information, really important information, right? That can help save somebody's life in this case. And then give us information about, where we're going to use the restroom. And that's also important information. Then typography can be added into it to give even more of context and, the use of a typeface or a font. And that also affects the design. So typography is a big part of design. Okay, so this is the Nike swoosh, which is one of the most iconic designs. This woman, Carolyn Davidson, again, you can link to see more, created this in 1971. And I think everybody can recognize this Nike swoosh design. We don't even need to see the word Nike next to it. She was a college student and she was paid $35 for the design, which I know seems insane right now, but she did get stock in the company, so she is fine. She has a lot of money because of that. Because she ended up working for Nike as a freelance designer. A freelance is someone who's not full-time and they just come in and work on projects. So this is such a simple design, but also effective. It's really just a curved line with some width variation, but it's representing movement. It's also the wing of the goddess Nike, who the company is named after. So it's representing a wing and movement, and it just works, right? And we all recognize it immediately. So I think that's the power of really simple design. And then illustration is a whole nother business, a whole nother career. And there's all different kinds. You can do editorial, like what we're looking at here. It's for magazines and newspapers, and it's telling a story. This is the cover of The New Yorker, done by Myra Kalman, another living American artist, and she uses gouache paint. I'm pretty sure this is gouache. She doesn't have it listed on her website, but most of her paintings are with gouache, and we're going to be using gouache. So I think it's kind of fun to see how someone does it. She paints gouache on paper, and then you could also do book illustrating, children's books, book covers. There's smaller images within a book. I think they're called spots that illustrators can create. And then there's personal clients. You can have art for individuals or small businesses. There's like wedding invitations, logos can be illustrated, and then you can do advertising. I see some beautiful illustrations in advertising to promote products or services or anything. And then there's retail products. Wallpaper has made a huge comeback because now it can be removable, so people can put it in their rentals and stuff. And an illustrator and designer creates the pattern on wallpaper. Packaging that would be printed, and greeting cards. There's a lot of things to do in the art world. So, the starving artist myth, we need to really squash that, because it really doesn't exist. These people make quite a good living. Okay, so why is art important, and why is design important? And I always have a hard time articulating this myself, so I use other people's words because they can say it better than I can. And this is a quote from Michelle Obama. The image we see is a painting, an oil painting of Michelle Obama by Amy Sherald, and there's a link again, another African-American living artist. So Michelle Obama says, the arts are not just a nice thing to have or to do if there's free time or if one can afford it. Rather, paintings and poetry, music and fashion, design and dialogue, they all define who we are as a people and provide an account of our history for the next generation. So I agree with this, and it's said in a way that I could never say it, that it's defining who we are. It shows who we are as a culture and all the different facets of our culture. And it shows people in future generations what was important to us and what our culture meant to us. So it really is an important record. It's part of history. And if you're interested in art history, it's definitely super fun to learn about. Okay, so here's some quotes that I want to inspire you and help you, images to help you get started thinking about what art and design are to you. So this is Edgar Degas. He's most famous for doing like the paintings and pastels of ballet dancers. But he says art is not what you see, but what you make others see. So it's not about copying what you see, but it's about picking out things to make others see. This is a landscape he did. Again, you have the links there if you want to learn more. This is Picasso, and what he says is, Picasso says, I am always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it. So I think this is so great for a classroom environment, right? When you're taking a class, you have to try the things you don't know how to do yet to be able to do them, right? So challenging yourself to try different things is why I put this quote in. Sometimes making these simple abstract shapes that we're going to be doing can be frustrating, and you don't like the way it looks, or it seems so simple, but then it's really difficult to do and you can get frustrated. And so that's why I bring this quote in, is because this is how you learn, right? By going through that, by trying and just putting the effort into it, even if you don't know what you're doing, just going for it, basically. This is Salvador Dali, and this is a gouache painting. Salvador Dali is famous for that like melting clock. Was a surrealist artist, but I found this cool gouache painting that he did, and since we're going to be using gouache, I got excited. So this is what I like to tell all my students Have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. Just let that go. I have trouble with this. I know so many people do. And my message to you, Salvador Dali's message to you as well, is that perfection doesn't exist. It's not possible. So if you can just try to let go of that and enjoy the process and just keep trying, people have been thinking about this for generations. So you're not alone in, obviously Salvador Dali is saying this because he did probably have a fear of perfection, or the idea of perfection comes into his head and he's like, okay, I know you'll never reach it. So you have to tell yourself these things. I've had sticky notes of this in my studio to remind me, because it can be a hard thing to remember. This is from a living designer. She's Turkish, but I think she lives in the US now. And there's some links to her website. And this is like, she has this like creative process that she's created. That's what the image is. So she helps people with their creative process, basically, as designers. So she says, to say that something is designed means it has intentions that go beyond its function. So it's not just about the function of the thing or how the thing works. If it's just about function, it's planning. If it has intentions that go beyond the function, then it's design. And her name is, how you pronounce it, is Aisha. You'll start to notice that I have difficulty pronouncing things, so sometimes I put the pronunciation in. Okay, so your discussion assignment, what we're going to be doing, you're introducing yourself and meeting your classmates. You're going, instead of posting a photo of yourself or writing about yourself, you're going to write your answers on paper and post the image. This is because I want you to get used to taking a photo or scan of paper of your artwork right away in this class, so we can work out and troubleshoot if you're having any issues or trouble taking photos or scans of your artwork. I want to know right away in the first week so I can help you. You can use scrap paper, you can use an envelope, you can use the back of something, you can use computer paper or printer paper, you can use pencils, pens, markers, I don't care, you can use whatever you want. So you're going to write your preferred name and pronouns, so we all know what to call you, and then you're going to draw. So using basic shapes, it can be rectangle, circle, triangle, squares. You're going to make a symbol or a sign you see in your everyday life. So some design that you maybe overlook in your everyday life. And I'm going to demonstrate how to do that in a moment. So I want you to simplify these designs down to simple shapes and lines. So think about traffic signs, app icons, symbols in public transportation that you might take or in your car. And then you're going to take a photo or scan of your paper with your name and the symbol on it or sign on it and post it to the discussion. So you're watching this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And then, so watch till the end of the video so you learn how to take good images of your art and practice posting to the discussion. You're going to be graded on this on your presentation and how your images look. So I don't want them to be blurry. I want them to be cropped. I want them to look great. And the purpose of this is for you to get in the habit of creating a digital image of your artwork that looks great so you can use in the future. And this is a habit that I wish someone had taught me when I was in school. I wasn't good at taking images of my work, and I lost some artwork and then it's just gone, so even if you don't think it's the greatest thing you ever created, it's nice to have, a record and saved images of your work. And at the end, we'll put it all together in a portfolio. So my expectations of the discussion are that you be a good person, that we all be good people. This is an educational and encouraging space. We are here to help each other improve our artwork. And I don't believe you can be creative if you don't feel safe. So if you feel stressed out, if you feel like someone's going to bully you or make fun of your work, then you're not going to feel creative. Because you need to have an open mind to be creative. You need to be a little bit vulnerable to be creative. So I want you to feel safe posting your work, and that is on all of us. Everyone, we're a group now, this class, right? We're all in it together. So we all have the responsibility to make each other feel encouraged and safe to share our work. So I have no tolerance for any kind of language like racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, any kind of hate speech. There's no place for that here. We're talking about each other's artwork. We're not talking about each other as people. It just no reason for it. If you do post any kind of hateful language, links, images, you risk failing in the project or the course and being removed from the online classroom. It's just, there's no reason for it. There's usually not an issue. But I just feel like there's not an issue because I want to be really clear about it and say it right up front. I just have no tolerance for it. I'm not afraid to speak out. And if you're feeling unsafe in the class and I'm not picking up on it, you need to let me know and I will take care of it. And I read every single comment that you make in the discussions. You might not know that I'm reading everything, but I do check it every day. But of course, I'm human and I could miss something. So if you feel like something's happening that doesn't feel right, you just got to let me know and I'm happy to take care of it. But we won't have an issue with that. Now we just get it out of the way, right? And move on to helping each other make the best artwork and designs that we can. So I'm going to give you a demo. I call them demos or demonstrations. It's basically a video lesson, step-by-step visual instructions. So the best thing you can do is to scan your artwork. Now, I know everybody doesn't have a scanner, but if you have like one of those printer, copier, scanner things, those are great for scanning your artwork. Every scanner is different, so I'm not going to do a demonstration of that because it wouldn't make any sense because everybody has a different one. So just like Google your model and look up how to do it. You can also crop while you're scanning or crop on the computer that you scan to. Okay, the next thing is a phone or a digital camera. So the important thing about this that you don't need to worry about with scanning is that you need good lighting. So set up next to a window in daylight or move some lamps around. My best advice is propping up your art against a wall or taping it up against a wall so there's not any glare on it. I don't want to see like the shadow of your hand and your phone on the paper. So you can get away from that by putting it up against a wall. I also recommend stabilizing your elbows or your hand. So you can stabilize your elbows by propping them up. You can hold onto your wrist with your hand and also stabilize your hand that way. And then you need to crop it. So I don't want to see any like fingers in there. Even if you have beautiful nail art, that is going to distract from your actual artwork that you're doing for the project. So we don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see like the little things that come off of a spiral notebook sticking out. You can crop it while you're taking a photo. You can also crop it on your phone and you can just Google how to do that. I know everyone has a different phone, so I'm not going to show how to do it. Right now, I'll just show you how to do the project and a little bit of how to take a photo. All right, so in this demonstration, I'll show you how to do the introduction discussion. And I am just using plain old computer printer paper. I buy a whole ream of it like this. I just buy recycled computer paper. And I use this for everything. It's just cheap and easy. And you could use a sketchbook. You can really use whatever you have. I'm also using a big pen, but you can use pencil or whatever you have. I'm using this just so it's easier for you to see. I tend to have like a light touch, so I try to use the darker things. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is write your name. So I'm Lee. And then write your pronouns. I'm she, her. So we know what to call you. in the discussion. So that's introducing yourself. The next thing you're going to do is draw using basic shapes on the same paper. You're going to draw a symbol or a sign that you see in your everyday life. So you're going to sort of break it down into shapes. And you only have to do one, but I'm just going to show you some examples. So like I'm thinking about the arrow on my computer, like that's pointing to stuff. And that arrow is really a rectangle and then a triangle. And that's the arrow, right? You can draw it bigger if you want. And then it kind of comes down like this, which you can draw the details and fill it in. You can refine it if you want to. And then another symbol or sign that I see all the time is the app icon for podcasts, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. So it's just a square for the app icon that I see on my phone. And then there's like a circle in the middle because it makes like a person. And then there's this like body for the person that's like it's like a rectangle, but with rounded edges. And then there's two lines that go like this, that are basically circles that don't complete, that don't go all the way around. So there's that app icon. I also see the music app icon a lot. So that's another square. I guess it's more rounded on the edges. So see, this is having me even look at how those details are. And then the music note is kind of a little hard. I'm gonna start with the top because it's not perfectly straight, but it's a rectangle. So you see I'm breaking down into shapes. And then there's another rectangle that comes down like this that's more narrow, and another rectangle that comes down like this but ends higher up. So this one ends higher up. And then there's like two circles at the end for the music note. So see, I'm breaking down this more complex shape, and then you could color it in. I know it's white on color it in like that if you want, or you can just leave it. So that's it. That's all I want you to do is practice this, and I will show you how to take a nice photo of it if you're not going to scan it. All right, so I'm going to show you how to photograph artwork. If you have a scanner and your artwork is small enough to scan, scanning is always the best, but many of us don't have scanners. So with anything bigger that doesn't fit in a scanner, or if you don't have a scanner, you're gonna have to photograph it. Now, if you are using a scanner, you're gonna have to look that up on your own. Everybody's different, and you might have a scanner printer combo, and they all work differently. So it wouldn't make any sense for me to show you how to do that. So what you don't want to do is say, this is your artwork, right? You don't want to just take the photo like this for several reasons. One, because your hand is going to be shaky. Another big one is that it'll often leave a shadow on the artwork, which will be distracting to the work itself. So for those two main reasons, and it's hard to just get it, straight on. So my suggestion is to prop up your artwork against a wall. You can put it on a bulletin board. If it's slipping, this is like the back of a notebook, some cardboard to keep it sturdy. You can use like a cardboard box or whatever you have. I suggest just taking some tape if you don't have a bulletin board or someplace to put it. You could always tape it onto the wall, but you might not want to rip off your paint or wallpaper. I do this art teacher trick, which is just to take some of the adhesive off of the tape by just doing like this with your fingers, and do a little of that. Then you can tape it onto a piece of cardboard, your bulletin board, or the wall. and get it set up like that. Okay, so having it upright like this, and now we're thinking about lighting. What you always want to do is turn the overhead lights off. Now I have a window coming in this direction, pointing right at my artwork, which is always a great thing. Natural light, daylight is always helpful. If you don't have a good window or it's not daytime when you're trying to take the photo, I suggest turning off the overhead lights so you're not getting any big shadows, and then maybe getting two like table lamps. You can experiment with taking the lampshades off, one on each side so they're pointing this direction. If you have a lamp pointing directly at the artwork, it's gonna give you some shadows. So just experiment with lights you have around your home. Obviously, if you have like a ring light or something like that, you can put it straight on. And if you have a window, that helps. So again, my window's coming like this direction, straight at the artwork. Then, so we have it upright, we have the lighting set up, and then I have some books on a surface where I'm going to stabilize my hands. So I'm going to keep my hands really steady. I'm using an iPhone here, and I'm going straight on. So my phone and the artwork are parallel with each other, and I'm making sure there's no shadows anywhere, adjusting lights, and then I'm steadying my hands. Because no matter what, even if you have really steady hands, it's gonna wobble a little bit and get blurry. So you want to either put your hands on a pile of books, or you can put your elbows on a table. And I'm getting really close to the art and kind of cropping it, but leaving some space around. What I really want to make sure to do is not have this like this stuff from the spiral notebook. We don't want to see anything that's going to be distracting from your fabulous artwork. And then if you have a phone that, focuses itself, I always tap the center of the screen to focus right on the artwork, and then take a photo. You can take a couple, move back and forth and try to focus. And then when you find the photo you want, in the iPhone, every phone is a little different, but usually most iPhones have a way to edit and then crop. So you can crop within your iPhone. You can also crop on your computer. You can crop it on, and then on any other device or thing that you have, but you want to make sure you get a good image. And then you can email this to yourself. You can save it onto your computer. You can post it to Canvas right from your phone. So just make your life as easy as possible, getting the good image of your artwork so it's nice and clean and cropped.